Welcome back to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, Shaunna Thomas, the co-founder and executive director of Ultraviolet. We Are Ultraviolet.org is the website. On Twitter @Ultraviolet or @SL Thomas. Shaunna, welcome to the program. Where are we at? What do we know most recently about this judge in Texas who looks like he's fixing to ban abortion medication nationwide?
Thanks for having me. It does appear that way. And look, from the beginning of this entire case, this whole process has been about achieving a political outcome that is designed to deny us our right to have an abortion, reaching, beyond the states that are passing abortion bans into blue states where abortion is currently protected. So who's behind this is the ADF. It's a well-known hate group. They shopped around for a friendly court and a friendly judge to enact a radical anti-abortion agenda. They found their judge in Amarillo. They created this front group only a few months ago in order to file this lawsuit with a friendly Trump-appointed judge who they knew shared their anti-abortion goals and views. When we brought attention to this case and the plan, Judge Kaczmarek tried to hide what he was doing, and he's tried to do it this week. And so what we're doing today is, with Women's March and a number of others, is standing up a kangaroo court in front of the courthouse in Amarillo, because that's what it is, right? They are leaping over evidence, over procedure, over precedent to get to the conclusion they want, to ban abortion access nationwide.
Yeah, let's just be very clear about this. Mifepristone is, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is a drug that has been in the market for decades. My brother had severe rheumatoid arthritis. He was on this drug. He has now passed away. It's used by women who are having difficult miscarriages. It's got a variety of uses, and yet, and it's apparently literally safer than Tylenol. More people in America, have side effects from Tylenol or even injury from Tylenol than from this drug, and it's been used for 2 decades. Do I have that right? And if so, what possible rationale do these people bring to this judge?
So you do have all of that right. It was approved over 2 decades ago, as you said. There has never been a case in history where a judge has overridden the judgment and the decision and the science backed by the FDA to regulate a drug. It's very clearly about Republicans not being happy with just overturning Roe, but wanting complete and total control over our bodies and our healthcare, right? So the idea that they can go ahead and just make a mockery of our nation's judicial system with this case, challenging a pill that, as you point out, has been safely used and publicly available for more than 2 decades, and trying to do it really outside of the public eye. It's an incredible low, even for them, and it's going to have devastating impact. I think it is important to point out for people who are watching this and are afraid of what it means for them. There are alternative abortion medications. This type of information can be available, and where, depending on what your needs are, where you live, you can find out where you can get it at websites like ineedana.org or abortionfinder.org. But it is going to have far-reaching impacts, and it is clearly a political decision that has absolutely nothing to do with the safety of the drug.
Tell us about weareultraviolet.org.
Thanks for asking. Yes, so ultraviolet.org, weareultraviolet.org. Ultraviolet was launched about 10 years ago, and it was actually our first campaign out of the gate was calling on the Komen Foundation not to defund Planned Parenthood's breast health program, which was a political decision that they were making, driven by a Republican VP who was trying to politicize Planned Parenthood and make their services less available to people who need them. So we launched 10 years ago, really trying to push back on this radical Republican agenda to deny women the ability to decide when and how many children they have, and have control over their bodies and lives. And we've had a lot of ups and downs. Obviously, we're in a crisis of proportions that we didn't necessarily expect 10 years ago, but we are determined to keep fighting. What we do is not only do we do political accountability, we also run corporate accountability campaigns. So we have been calling on Walgreens not to give in to the Republican bullies who are trying to stop them from dispensing mifepristone in states where abortion is still legal. So we do corporate accountability. We try to push people who should be our allies to make sure that the people who are trying to deny us bodily autonomy, who are trying to roll back rights and freedoms that have been hard won over the last few decades, and to win. So if you go to weareultraviolet.org, you can sign up to join our email list, and we give people ways to take action both online and offline to advance gender justice.
Can you mentioned that the group that was bringing this lawsuit in Texas, in Amarillo, Texas, recently incorporated or reincorporated in that town, or created an agency or a presence in that town just so they could bring this lawsuit before this particular judge. But when you reference that, you referred to them as a hate group, and I realize the Southern Poverty Law Center has identified them as such. Can you speak to the confluence or overlap between classic hate groups and misogyny generally, and the anti-abortion movement?
Sure. I think it's really important that people are starting to understand that there is a lot of overlap, if not total overlap, between the white supremacists, who we think about as traditional hate groups, and misogynists, people who are driving anti-women, hate against women, violence targeting women, as part of their kind of ideological framework and as part of the narrative they have about who's to blame, right, for the situation that, for particularly white men, but not just white men, for the where they are at in their lives. And we're seeing it in this case. I think, where we're also seeing this pop up, though, is on men's rights recruitment groups online. So oftentimes, white supremacists will use misogyny, will use the hatred of women to draw people into a conversation, again, about who's to blame for things that they don't like about our lives, and then draw them into a conversation about white supremacy. So these are often the same people with an overlapping agenda that is really about preserving or restoring, depending on how you think about it, the power that a small group of landowning, right, white men have in this country over the rest of us.
Yeah, it seems that Rush Limbaugh really made this, I mean, he's passed away now, but he really made this acceptable with his whole feminazi thing and his Hillary Clinton nutcracker and all these other horrible phrases and memes that he was promoting. How do we effectively as a society push back against this kind of misogynistic hate?
So I 100% agree with you about Rush Limbaugh. In fact, that was the second campaign we ran, was to call out his advertisers. And we got, I think, over 60 advertisers to drop his show back in 2012, wow, when he was really helping to mainstream misogyny, hatred of women. He was using a pending case that Republicans, piece of legislation that Republicans had brought to the House. And one of the first things they did when they took the House back over from Democrats was to try to get birth control removed from the Affordable Care Act. Rush Limbaugh was all over this, thought this was 100% the right thing to do, and mocked the witnesses who came in to speak up on behalf of birth control, being a part of the ACA. And he, that was an important campaign for helping to demonstrate that there are millions of people who don't agree with him, and to show what a sort of marginal voice he is or should be considered to be. But as the media has become more fractured, and there have been sort of more ways for different audiences to be both recruited and manipulated in a lot of ways, to adopt these misogynist, white supremacist ideas, it's become increasingly challenging to push back on them. One of the things that we've been doing over the last few years is really pushing on social media platforms and other types of platforms, including Google, to take their responsibility really seriously about the ways in which they are monitoring and interrupting those coordinated and purposeful kind of recruitment and hate speech amplifying tactics that the right will use. They're essentially using the social media platform's business model in order to spread hate more broadly and to recruit more people into their movement. So it is something that is happening. It's being driven by, a small number of influencers, but they are using again, the platform's business model, and they're using the ways in which the media has become this sort of fractured environment to sow confusion and to convince way too many people to adopt a misogynist and white supremacist.
Yeah, and it's not a good thing. Shaunna Thomas, the co-founder and executive director of Ultraviolet. WeAreUltraviolet.org is the website. Ultraviolet on Twitter, or SL Thomas. Shaunna, thank you so much for dropping by, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.